Welcome back to Go See the World podcast. I'm Aubrey O'Hare, and this is Jordan.
Hello.
Today, we're coming to you real time. A lot of as a public service announcement for a lot of our sailing friends out there, and to just kind of let everybody know what happened and get to a place where you don't need to keep retelling the story. But first of all, I would like to thank the U.S. Coast Guard and the
RCC Panama,
their Aero Navy, and the marina here at Vistamar and Omar, who checked us in Armuelas.
Yes, he's the port captain there.
So thank you very much for all of your support through this. So I guess where do we begin? There's a point here. The Bay of Panama can be pretty treacherous with winds. I don't know if you guys can hear the winds up there, but it's a dangerous bay. It's a lot like the Bay of Tapachula. So things need to be planned pretty well, and you only have certain times for weather windows. So we dropped the hook in
Isla Sabaco.
It was right after Bahia Honda.
Yeah, we had a glorious time there.
Beautiful sail. I just did a last minute check on the weather, and it turned out that we had an excellent weather window to round the point, and that the bay itself looked pretty fair. It was calling for a 1 foot sea with a 1 second fetch. And, that's a little bit choppy, but that's mostly wind waves and about 7 knots of wind. So, all in all, it looked pretty good for a passage, and it looked like it was going to hold that weather for about 12 hours, which was all we needed to get across there. So we decided to pull up anchor at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had a little less fuel than what I like. I like to keep full tanks. It's kind of one of my mottos on the boat. We always keep full tanks.
Yeah, it was a bit of a yeehaw, but, we're excited. We're coming to the end of this chapter at the moment, which we can talk about later. Yeah, it was a little bit of a yeehaw, but it wasn't. We all felt good about it. The weather looked good.
Yeah, we all felt really good. We were sailing into midday, and we had a plan to stop before the point just to reevaluate, fuel up before we rounded the point. And so we left at 3, and usually I go to bed first, and Jordan takes the first watch. So on our first, as we got going, we saw, I don't know, hundreds of snakes, of sea snakes.
God, I forgot that they even happened.
Yeah.
So many yellow-bellied sea snakes. I know this because I saw one when we were leaving Costa Rica, and I had to look it up, and I learned a lot about them.
So hundreds of sea snakes, and they're super poisonous. They're really beautiful, and we just went through slicks of them, like just hundreds. It was pretty wild, and so it was beautiful. It was a beautiful sail, and so Jordan tapped out at like 10 or 11.
It was like 11? Close to midnight.
Yeah. So what happens then? Typically, now we figured out that we put Violet down here in the galley, and I can sit in the companionway, and I can look out, and I can also watch Violet, and if she opens her eyes, she can see me. So then if we need somebody, we tap Savannah in, and she takes Violet, and then Jordan and I can handle anything that's going on up deck as far as like sail changes or just checking in with each other if we see
something weird or
out
of sorts.
Yeah, so at about I'd say
2 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll put all the exact details we have written down of our coordinates and things like that in the description below, and also in a blog post, so you guys can pass those details on easily. But I noticed a ship, what I thought was a ship, off to the starboard that looked several miles away, and I checked AIS. I didn't see anything on AIS, and it's not completely abnormal because there's a lot of fishing vessels. Some boats aren't on AIS.
We've seen a lot of boats at night that actually haven't been. It's
a lot of fishing boats.
I pay attention to it, but I don't use that as I use sight and instinct.
So what was strange for me was the light configuration. So from a distance, I could see a red light, and then I could see a green light, and then I saw multiple white lights that looked like they were on some kind of container ship, and then off to the starboard side, I saw another red light that was kind of far away. And so to me, in the distance, it looked like a container ship. And so, you want to steer a couple miles clear of those ships. So I started moving the boat towards land, and the boat kept getting closer and closer. And this seemed really strange to me. And so as the boat got closer, I started to move more aggressively towards land. We're about 3 miles offshore. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't think I'd get emotional. Then I saw 8 men on a boat. They flipped the lights on inside of their boat, and then they put something like these really big KC lights on all around their boat, and they had hand spotlights. And I knew immediately what was happening. They had no fishing gear on board. None of them were wearing shirts or shoes. They had tattered shorts. And I yelled for Savannah to come take Violet and put her up in the closet with her. And I told her to get Jordan. So Jordan ran up, looked out, saw the guys coming at speed. And what she noticed before I did was...
I came up obviously disoriented because Savannah just said I was needed up top. There wasn't much context to that. I didn't really understand what was going on. I started walking upstairs, and I don't remember what Savannah said, but she said something that I realized it was important. I put pants on and my life vest and came up on deck, and I saw the boat with its lights on and its lights shining on us coming pretty quickly right at us, and realized that they had no good intentions.
And so they started pulling up the red light that I had seen off to the distance was a small light that they had on a skiff. And so they started pulling up the skiff really quickly, and the leader, what I think was a leader, was shouting at the other men to get into the skiff. And I made a decision to put the boat in full throttle and bring the bow around to them to try to crush the boat that they were disembarking to get onto the skiff. And as I was doing that, they turned to try to get out of my way and came behind us. And then none of the men wanted to get on the skiff then, and they were yelling. And then there was nothing else I could do when they got behind us but go. And so I put the boat in full throttle and came down, and we started pouring gasoline into little glass bottles and tearing up our bed sheets, getting ready to just defend as best we could, because at that point they didn't know that we were just women on the boat with a baby. And I know that if that would have been the case, there wasn't been anything we could do. And I know a lot of you out there are probably thinking, like, why not just let them rob you and take your valuables? But I hate to say this, but in a lot of places in the world, we are the valuables, because there's a lot of human trafficking and sex trafficking that happened. And all I could think about was them taking my baby and the girls. And so anyway, during this whole time, I FaceTimed my mom and my stepdad and asked poor them. Sorry if
and
you
they
guys
had
are watching
Shane
this.
on the phone.
So we're calling out coordinates, and they are on the line with the U.S. Coast Guard in Oakland. So we were told by a sailing friend to contact the Oakland Coast Guard, because they're really good at dispatching Coast Guard cutters to wherever you are in the world. So they got a translator for my parents and started communicating with the Panamanian authorities, and they started dispatching to us. So it was pretty clear after about 45 minutes that they weren't following us, because they were in a fast skiff. What we found out later is in that area there's a lot of drug trafficking that's going on.
It's kind of, from what I understand, in this region up and down the coast from Mexico past Panama even, but on the Pacific side. So
we were pretty scared. And so I decided to push as fast as we could to Mala Point, which originally we had decided to kind of reconvene in a bay before that point. And we were arriving at sunrise, and it was really flat. So we decided to round the corner, and if we would have shot through the middle, we would have had enough fuel to make the marina.
And it seemed like our weather was going to allow for that. Also, Houdini, we were running Houdini hard,
for
and
hours.
for hours and hours and miles, and it just we coming off of like that terrifying experience, like all we wanted to do was just get to the marina. The weather was going to be just fine to do that.
And it was like Savannah was in the front and she could see their faces and them shining the lights in our windows. Like it, she's crying, wondering how she's going to hide and defend, this little beautiful little baby on board. And so you guys can imagine how I felt as the person in charge. And, Jordan's just down here like a trooper, and I'm like, pour gasoline into glass bottles. And she's looking at me like, say less. And we didn't have that many glass bottles, though. And so
I'd also like to point out, we've been through 7 countries in the last handful of months. We have approached fishermen and had fishermen approach us in daylight and nighttime hours in every country from Mexico to here.
Angry at us for
getting too close to their boats, to their lines, not wanting to move out of our way in a night crossing, been close enough to smell their cigarettes and hear their like laughter and wave their hands when they're mad at us. This was not that. And I would just like to make that very clear.
Yeah, so we got around the corner and we got slammed. I was up at the helm. Our autopilot wasn't keeping up, and so I was hanging onto the wheel, which is all wood, and I was pretty concerned that I was going to break it because I was holding onto it to stay on the boat. I ended up clipping in, and at one stage, you can probably hear the wind outside right now.
You can hear the wind outside right now.
At one stage, the waves got so high that I could see into the waves from the cockpit. I looked a turtle in the eye, and I was so scared that it was going to get thrown into the cockpit. Then it had me thinking about all of those snakes.
Circle back.
Those snakes the slick of snakes that we went through, and we had been seeing so many of those deadly snakes, and I'm just out there just talking to myself and saying, we've got this boat is strong, we're okay. And all the while we are constantly being checked on by the U.S. Coast Guard and the Navy here in Panama because, we had just escaped a pirate attack, and they called us and they asked if we were okay. And I asked why, and they said because of what they were seeing on the weather. So what we didn't know at the time is that there were many other boats in distress that saw the same weather and tried to make the bay at the same time that we did. So at this point, we're running dangerously low on fuel.
We're going around a knot, sometimes less, sometimes closer to 2, but for hours.
The boat's launching off of these waves and going straight into the next wave because the fetch was so short. Savannah's down here, dry heave, vomiting because there's nothing left in her stomach, holding on to Violet. And I am trying to take the waves at the right angle to ride up the wave, and then as we crest, to point the boat into the wave into the correct next direction so we don't get rolled. And no one else can do that here but me because we have hydraulic steering. There's no weather helm on it. You can't really feel it. You just have to know how the boat handles. And so that was hours and hours and hours. And at one point I started seeing black spots because I think my knees were locked, and man, it was scary. So we ended up calling the Coast Guard and telling them that we needed assistance because in the middle of the bay, we were on the empty fuel line. So
we started to try to cut back to shore at a certain point when we realized we were just almost going backwards.
There's nothing else we could do. So the plan was they were going to come air vac us out because the weather had gotten so bad. They contacted us and said that it wasn't safe for them to deploy air rescue and that they were going to send one of their Coast Guard vessels. So all they had available to get out to us was a large skiff type boat with a couple big outboards and some armed Navy. So the Navy came out, and it was just so dangerous to try to get off the boat. So we ran out of fuel, we ran out of fuel to the point the last bit of fuel that we had was in the bowl on the filters, on our Keenan filters. And I know this because the next morning, but we threw out 300 feet of chain and a 145-pound anchor on our bridle. We had a big mantis anchor. And we dragged 1,485 feet across the bay. And the Coast Guard was yelling for us to start the engine and to try to move the boat, but we couldn't.
No, we ripped that snubber clean off. Just flew.
Yeah.
Heard it go.
So the next morning, things laid down quite a bit, and the Navy had stayed with us all night guarding the boat, so no one boarded us.
Just an open boat. Thank you, Panama.
Yeah. So then the marina here at Vista Mar was talking to family and friends and trying to coordinate both our rescue and the rescue of another boat that was dismasted.
Yeah, there's 3 boats here actually in the marina. There was one boat with a mast problem and 2 broken sails, for lack of better description, that all limped in here, towed or limped.
Yeah.
Across the bay at the same time that we were.
So yeah, they then Savannah, the brave little soul that she is, jumps in the skiff with the guards and goes into town to take our jerry cans and get us some more fuel. We ended up getting a half of one tank on the boat, and we just mentally prepared ourselves to do another 10 hours of hand steering. We had 40 miles to go, and 10 hours would have been 4 times as fast as we were going coming in. So as it should turn out, we beat for about an hour, and then we made almost 7 knots on a beam reach with a little bit of the storm jib out, and we made it here before dark. And
we were greeted with a dock full of very friendly people that all knew about the things that we'd been through, and made me want to cry.
Yeah. So, I don't know. There's a few things to consider and some things that, I asked myself when we were out there, like, what's more important, like being a mom or being the captain of this boat? Because it's hard to leave a boat as soon as you should. Like people, I feel like captains always stay on their boat way longer than they should, and they should just accept help and get off. And Jordan made a comment as teary-eyed getting ready to, we threw out all the chain and threw out the anchor, and we're getting ready to get evacuated. And I just felt so bad to be leaving my vessel, like I had failed. And she said, there's been so many times in my life where I felt stupid for not accepting help as soon as I should. And, the moment I said to myself, it's more important to be a mom than to protect this boat, was really the moment that everything kind of got a lot calmer. Yeah. And so, yeah, I asked myself what I'd do differently. I mean, what would you do differently?
I don't know that there was anything to do differently. That I think we did the right things. We're all here. We're safe. And we can't change the fact that the weather did what it did, and we can't change the story. I think that we did exactly what we should have. And I think part of us telling the story right now, besides the fact that I want to clear some mental real estate up so I can sleep, is that we want everybody to be alert here. We've made some really great friends here in this community, in this region, in the last 6 months in particular. And everybody that watches the channel is important, and we just want people to be alert and to know what to do. I mean, you tried to run people over.
I was yeah, and what do they say? The best defense is a good offense. But it's just so scared that they would get on the boat and throw my baby overboard and steal us, or I don't know. So I just didn't want to give up without a fight. And so that was a choice. And I think that some things that maybe I would do differently is just listen to my instinct and definitely keep as much fuel as we possibly can on the boat at all times. Also, I think I'd like some large spotlights on the boat, and I don't know. There's just some things that I think we can do for safety as anyone, but especially as women. Like, probably if I could have done anything differently, I wish I would have been able to cover my face and have like hats on and maybe a bigger coat or something, because I didn't want anyone to know that we were just women out here, and that was really scary. And also just not like, you can't travel with weapons really, and so our only line of defense was gasoline.
Creativity really is what it is, and I have to try and make light of it now because it's a bad technique of keeping myself from crumbling on the ground probably. But yeah, you have to get creative. I don't know.
I think having a plan is important, and I'm not sitting here condoning hurting other people, but it was serious and we were serious, and in that way, I'm not sorry.
No, we have a rule on this boat that if it's us or them, it's us. So
yeah. So yeah, that's the deal. So always be ready to give your coordinates. Know who will answer the phone in the middle of the night, and try to stay calm. And if it's possible, I think that turning in and trying to run over a boat that's trying to board you is tactically probably a good move if you can. For us, we're really fortunate that Houdini is so heavy. She's 31 tons, and we have a big, giant bowsprit, a huge anchor, and a dolphin striker. And so she looks even bigger and harder to board from head on.
And a lot of freeboard, I think.
She's hard to board.
She's hard to board. I don't think it would. I think once you went on the offense, I think that they realized it was going to be a lot harder. I also don't think that these people were, I don't think that we were the original plan. I think they were up to something else, most likely nefarious, and we just happened to be going by. We were close enough to see their disorganization, and them scuffling with each other, trying to figure out what they wanted to do. And with the combination of that and the size of Houdini and your quick actions, I think that is how we came out not hurt.
Yeah, so that's it. So now we're hauling the boat out, and we're going to wrap her up for a few months. Jordan's going back to see some family and be with Shane, her boyfriend, for a little bit. And Savannah and I are going to go join Sailing Doodles on his new catamaran in Thailand and get out of Latin America for a little while. When I come back to the boat, there's going to be some things that need to change here safety-wise. We might bar the windows and get some big lights, and think about what type of crew we bring on to help us through certain regions of the world. I'm not sure yet. But I do know that I never want to feel that way again. I never want to feel helpless out there with, my child and friends, and it was a really bad feeling. So, yeah. I don't know if any of you guys have experienced anything like this before, but it's pretty scary.
Yep. So if you're out there in a boat, stay alert. Always have a plan.
Always have a plan. All right, you guys, we're gonna release this unedited and just out for you guys. We'll have the coordinates either on the screen or in the description below. You can go to sailingmisslone.com, and I'll make a blog post that you can share about this in the next couple hours for anyone that's traveling. And yeah, just share this with anyone you know that's traveling that you think it'd be useful for. Yeah.
That wind is, I'm so glad we're on that wind.
We got really lucky. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.